Hello and welcome to the first week of the Cottage Twirl Quilt Along. If we haven't met before, my name is Miriam and I do all kinds of quilting videos here on YouTube. We are starting a quilt along today. I'm so excited. We're going to be making my pattern, Cottage Twirl. This is a free pattern that you can get in my shop. I will have the link to it in the description box below. And it's a really fun pattern. We only utilize two really simple classic quilt blocks, but it makes this really cool design with our fabric placement, right? So it's very, very fun, very cool, super beginner friendly. If you have never made a quilt before, this would be a great first time quilt to make because you're learning a lot of essentials and a lot of basics in quilting. And I would love to walk you through making your first quilt. One of my favorite things to do is to teach beginner quilting techniques and just kind of make it exciting and not rule-based, right? We are fun-based quilters here on my channel, okay? This is a judgment-free zone. If your seams aren't perfect, that's okay. If you lose your points in your stars, that's okay. We are here just to have fun and to really enjoy this hobby and to grow, right? Our first week of the quilt along is going to be all about fabric selection and then also cutting our fabrics. So this week you need to, if you haven't already, choose your fabrics that you want to use and then get them cut up for the next couple of weeks where we're actually going to be piecing our blocks. If you have the pattern, you can get the PDF version, or if you would like to order a physical copy like this in booklet form, so it's in a nice little booklet for you. I do have these also available in my shop. It's $6. The $6 includes the cost of the printing and the shipping. So if you would like to have a physical copy, go ahead and order that and I'll get that shipped out as soon as I can, okay? I've been quite swamped with orders, which is a good thing because I made a bunch of kits for this quilt along. My sales were above and beyond what I thought they would be, and I'm just so thankful and excited, and just thank you everyone who ordered. Thank you everyone that has gotten either the printed or the free version. I'm just really excited about this quilt along. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So we are first going to open up our pattern. Now, if you have never used a quilt pattern before, let me just go over just real basic instructions that I like to follow whenever I'm doing a quilt and what I like to encourage other quilters to do. So if you're using a pattern, I highly recommend reading the entire pattern, going through the whole thing and just reading it through. When I make my patterns, I always have kind of this front page where I have like a little intro to me if you don't know who I am. And then I have a read before starting section, which kind of goes over any terms that I might be using because I like to keep beginner quilters in mind when I'm making patterns. So terms that I might be using that you might not know what they are, and just a little encouragement in there, and just any information that is needed is in that section. And then I have a Let's Connect area too. So if you want to follow me on social media or if you have any questions, my email's right there. So it's just really good to have all of the information before you go into making the quilt. Then I'll just go through and read the whole pattern if I'm using someone else's pattern, though I usually use my own these days, but it's just a good rule of thumb to practice, and then you kind of know what to expect and kind of what you're doing, okay? So for my pattern, on page 3, well, hold on, page 2, so our first page is just that intro information and connect page. Then page 2 is going to be fabric requirements. So I tried to break it down as easy as possible. So each fabric is labeled with a letter, fabric A, fabric B, fabric C, and so on. And it tells you how much of each fabric you will need. And then I also have a little diagram over here with the two blocks, and I'm showing you which fabric is used for which piece. So I just like to have as much information as possible for people in there. And then at the bottom, we also have other fabrics and material you will need. So you'll need fabric for binding, backing fabric, and then also batting. So those are things to know. Good to note. It would be a bummer to go in and think that you have everything for your quilt and then realize, you know, week 4, week 5, oh no, I don't have the fabric, or I don't have the batting, or oh, I forgot to get the binding fabric. So just good things to remember, especially if you're new. Then page 3, that's where we're going to be focusing today, is the cutting instructions, okay? So I wrote this pattern specifically to be used with yardage. So all of my quilt kits that I made for this quilt are sold in yardage, and the instructions are written specifically using yardage that we cut strips out of. I've gotten several emails and questions and comments and stuff about whether you can use different pre-cuts or scraps or anything like that. And the short answer is yes, you can. It's your quilt. You can do what you want with your quilt, right? But I will say the pattern is specifically written to be used with yardage. Let's say I've gotten specific questions, can I use charm packs? Of course you can use charm packs. The squares that we use or that we cut out from our strips are 4.5-inch squares. So charm packs are a 5-inch square. So what you can do is you can either trim all of your charm packs down to 4.5-inch squares and use them that way, or you can just use the 5-inch squares and then just know your quilt is going to be larger than what I say the finished quilt size is going to be, okay? Each block is going to be like a 1/2 inch larger, or each square is going to be a 1/2 inch larger rather. So that's something to think about. So yeah, you can definitely use pre-cuts. You can also use fat quarters. You could use layer cakes. You really can use whatever. But just know that the instructions in here are specifically written for strip piecing. So we sew our strips together and then we cut units from that. So if you were using squares, then you would just have your individual squares cut and then you would piece them together, you know, kind of traditional piecing. So the strip piecing just kind of cuts down on some time, and I think it's a lot of fun. It's just fun to be able to whip up a bunch of pieces all together real quick. So that's probably one of the more common questions I've gotten is, can you use scraps, pre-cuts? And yes, you can, but just know that this pattern is written specifically to be used with yardage, okay? So with fabric selection, the most important thing is to choose fabrics that you like, right? You know, I created some kits and they sold very well. That was very exciting. But you know what? There's probably some people that don't like the fabrics that I chose. Some people that are going to be in this quilt along, they're going to choose some fabrics and you might think, whoa, I would not have chosen those fabrics to go together. But you know what? If they like those fabrics, then they picked the right fabrics. I don't want you to get too hung up on fabric selection. Just pick fabrics that you really like and that you think go well together. Yeah, I think some people really get hung up on fabric selection, like it's very intimidating, which I totally get that. So a lot of times if I'm trying to choose fabrics for a project and I'm just not quite sure what I'm doing, I will pick one fabric that I really like that has a lot of colors in it, and then I will use that fabric to choose the other fabrics to go with it. So you pick one kind of main fabric. It doesn't even have to be the main fabric for the pattern, but you can, in your mind, it's the main fabric that is the foundation fabric, right? That we're going to use to choose the other pieces. So for example, I have a little fabric shop. So I've got my fabrics back here. So let me just go spur of the moment. We will do this together. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I think this is a good exercise to do. So, and you can do this in your own stash. I know you guys got stashes at home. I know you do. So this is a really good practice to do, even if you're not picking for a specific quilt. It's just good to kind of play around and put fabrics together that you wouldn't really think would go together. You wouldn't, when you purchase them, you didn't necessarily purchase them to go together. At least this is something that I do. Maybe I'm just a nerd, but so let's say my main fabric that I'm going to try to go with is, let's see, which fabric do I want to pick? So my main fabric that I'm picking is this beautiful fabric. This is a Riley Blake Designs fabric from, let's see, this is from the Wanderlust collection. It's a discontinued collection, which I'm sad because I really liked this one. But so this is going to be my main fabric. So now I just need to pick fabrics that go with this. So I'm going to go in and look at this, and I see there's some really pretty peachy colors in here. There's some really beautiful blues and kind of golden yellows. So I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to try to pick fabrics that are not from the same collection, just to give you an idea that it is possible to pick fabrics that aren't necessarily in the same collection, but we'll go. We're just gonna wing it here. Let's see. That goes. I'll show you my selection here. I will point the camera down a little bit so you can see. So there's one that I've chosen that goes with it. You never know, you might pick fabrics that you would not think would go together, but then when you actually hold them up to each other, it's like, hey, that actually looks great. Let's see. This go? I think it goes. I mean, the blues. If you can't tell, I really like florals. So you can even pick fabrics from different companies. So these are all Riley Blake. This is an Art Gallery Fabrics fabric that matches really well. Let's see, do I have a green? Yeah, that would go. So yeah, I mean, there's a selection right there. So I pick one main fabric that's kind of a, I don't know, kind of a not loud, but larger print and with lots of colors. And then I went in and chose 4 other fabrics that go with this, but are more blenders and kind of soft patterns. See, this is just a really delicate little leaf pattern. This is just literally just little tiny flowers. Again, just some vines, but it goes with that fabric, right? Same with that one, little daisies. So that's just kind of what I like to do. If you're struggling to choose a fabric, pick that one main fabric and then find individual ones that will go with individual colors that are in there. I mean, this one you could also choose some yellows, some creams, a creamy color. And then once you've picked a few lower volume prints like these, then you can put in some solids as well if you want some solids. So yeah, that's kind of, that's my advice for choosing fabrics for a project. I know it can be kind of overwhelming sometimes trying to pick fabric, and I totally get that. If you're ever having a hard time picking fabric, I love picking fabric. So if you ever want to check out my shop, a shameless plug here. If you ever want to check out my shop and you need a little help picking fabric, I'm happy to help. You can send me an email and I'll try to pick some fabrics that go along with what you have already chosen, and we can try to pick out some things for you, okay? So that is an option. Okay, I'm just gonna set these aside for now. Fabric selection obviously is important because you want to pick fabrics that you like, but just don't get hung up on trying to pick the perfect fabric, right? If you like it, then it's the perfect fabric. That's just kind of what I'm trying to get at. So again, if you're still struggling with picking out colors and kind of placements of what colors you want to use, the pattern includes a, let's see, do I have a printed version of the pattern? I don't think I have one out here. But the pattern includes a coloring page in the back on page 11 of the pattern. And if you order the physical copy, I include a coloring page in the pattern pouch. You can get a coloring page that you can color in and see if the colors that you have selected go together if you want. You can play around with color placement and all of that. So that is also an option if you're still struggling with choosing where to put your fabrics and what fabrics to use, okay? I hope that made sense. I hope that cleared up any questions that anyone had. I know some people have told me that they are going to try to make a scrappy version of this quilt, and I cannot wait to see those. I think it's gonna look great. I think this pattern would really look great in a scrappy style. So I'm looking forward to seeing those. Oh, and if you have any questions let me know in the comments, okay? I'm going to be trying to really staying on top of the comment section of the quilt along videos, so I'm answering questions as we go along. Now, as far as cutting, the cutting instructions, again, are written specifically to be used with yardage, okay? And I'm presuming that the yardage is 42 inches wide. It varies. The width of yardage is gonna vary between companies. I know Art Gallery fabric is usually closer to 44, 45 inches wide, not including selvage. And Riley Blake is a little bit smaller than that. So it just really varies on what fabric you're using. So and that's one of the things that I include in my read before you start section, is I'm assuming that the width of fabric that you're using is 42 inches wide. And in the pattern, there is an abbreviation, WOF, which is width of fabric. So when we are cutting yardage, the way that I like to cut yardage is I will take my fabric. Okay, let's see. What do I want to use? I will start with this fabric. I'm using the Warm Hearts quilt kit from my kit selection to make my quilt because I just really loved that fabric combo. So I'm going to show you how to cut up fabric F as my example, okay? So I'm using this really pretty. It's called Botanical Gathering by Art Gallery Fabrics. Beautiful. I love it. So anyways, we're going to cut up fabric F here on camera. And I'm just going to kind of show you how I'm going to do it. And this is how I'm going to cut up all of my strips. I should talk about this really quick before we start cutting. Some people like to pre-wash their fabrics, and some people like to starch their fabrics before they cut. If you are one of those people, do that before you cut, okay? My personal opinion on pre-washing fabric is you can do it, you cannot do it. One way is not right, one way is not wrong. It just kind of depends on your personal preference. Some people swear by it. Some people think it's a waste of time. So it's really kind of a person by person basis. I have done it in the past for several quilts, and I never really noticed a difference in shrinkage or fabric bleeding. I've just never had an issue with those things. Knock on wood. But some people really like to pre-wash their fabric. It's just really up to you. If you're a beginner, if you want to try pre-washing your fabrics, you can. And then, but no, when you take it out of the dryer, it's going to be wrinkly. It's going to be a mess. You're going to have to iron it a lot because for whatever reason, it just gets super wrinkly. At least it always did for me. And the edges of the fabric would fray, and then all of the little frayed strings would all create this crazy big ball of string that you'd then have to carefully cut away from the edges of the fabric. So maybe I was doing something wrong, but that was always the case for me, and I just was not a fan of that. So that's just not something that I did. I didn't see a benefit to it, but some people do. I just wanted to say that. And the same thing with starching. Some people really like to starch their fabric so it's really nice and stiff. I don't see a need for that. None of the fabrics that I carry or that I've really used really are that stretchy that I would feel like I need to starch it. I don't know, but some people swear by it. You know, Kimberly Jolly of the Fat Quarter Shop, she really starches her fabric, and her stuff is always beautiful. So maybe it does work, you know? Maybe it does do something for some people, right? So it's just kind of one of those things that it's an opinion, and it works for some people and some people just don't really get it. So I think I'm one of those people that doesn't really get it for most situations. For some, I can see how starching would help if you really want it to be nice and stiff. Now let's cut some fabric, okay? So I'm gonna point the camera down so you can see my cutting mat here. And for fabric F, we need to cut 8 4.5 inch by width of fabric strips from each fabric. So I have my fabric here. It is folded in half, okay? So the selvage edges are together and it is folded. This is straight off the bolt. So it's usually folded very nicely, especially from Art Gallery. So I don't really have to do any finessing with making sure everything's lined up and all of that. We need 8 strips in total. So I am going to rotate this. The folded edge is closest to me, and I'm a lefty, so I'm gonna be doing it on this end of the fabric. If you're a righty, you would probably do it on this side of the fabric, okay? But that's just the thing. We do things opposite, and that's okay. So what you need for cutting your strips is a cutting mat, which I have a nice big Fiskars cutting mat, and a rotary cutter. I personally really like the Olfa ergonomic cutter. It's just really great. You just hold the handle while you're cutting, the blade is out, and then when you're done, you just release and the blade is concealed. So I don't have to worry about remembering to put the blade away. I'm not going to accidentally cut my finger on it if it's sitting on the table. I'm not going to accidentally cut the fabric because I'm not holding the handle. So I really like this cutter. I actually have some of these for sale in my shop if you're interested. I will put a link, but it's my favorite cutter. I really, really like it. So I have that, and then I just have a large ruler, large straight ruler. I just have my Fiskars one that I've had for almost a decade now. So it works great. So we are going to just cut our strips out. You want this to be a nice straight edge. So if you need to trim off a little bit, you can, but mine is already straight because I cut this up just straight off the bolt. So that's nice and straight. So now I need a 4.5 inch wide strip, right? So I find the 4.5 inch line on my ruler, just like that. And I double check that it is the correct line, right? So I do 1, 2, 3, 4 inches and a half. Okay, that is the right size. So the way that I like to cut is I hold the ruler down with my hand. I kind of spread my fingers like that, like a little spider. I hold the ruler in place. I make sure a straight line on the ruler, horizontal, lines up with the folded edge of my fabric, and then the 4.5 inch line on the long end also lines up with the fabric. So then we're just going to hold the ruler like that, get the blade, I'm pulling my handle, and then we just cut. And you want the blade to be up against the ruler, but you don't want to push the ruler. And you just keep going all the way till you have your strip cut. If your blade is sharp, it should cut in just one cut like that, okay? If you're having to go back and recut, it's probably time to change out your blade, okay? So, but anyway, so that's how you cut your strips. You can also cut off the selvage if you would like. I'll probably just do that after I have my strips sewn together, just because that's just what I always do, okay? If you'd like to cut your selvage off before, you certainly can do that. So that's my first strip. And then of course we have one long strip, and you just continually do that for the rest of our strips here. So I'll show you just one more, just in case this is your first time watching how to cut fabric. You can take your time getting your ruler lined up. You do not have to go fast, okay? You don't have to go fast cutting either. Accuracy is more important than speed. And again, you just cut. If you need to move your hand down, you can. And there you go. So that's how we're going to cut our strips. And all of the strips that we cut out are 4.5 inch strips, except for fabrics B and C, which we cut out 10 inch strips for our half square triangles. So keep an eye on that with your cutting instructions. Make sure you're checking the size of strips to cut. And then for some of the fabrics also, we're gonna subcut to make 4.5 inch squares. So just keep an eye on that. So for example, fabric A, we cut 7 4.5 inch by width of fabric strips. And then from that, we're gonna subcut, which means cut from those strips 4.5 inch squares. I will show you with fabric D how to do that, just in case you don't know, okay? I know there's a bunch of beginners that that this is their first quilt along, which I'm so excited that you're joining me for your first quilt along. It's so exciting. That makes me really happy. Please have patience. Have patience, people that already know how to do this. You didn't know how to do this when you first started either. So we are going to show how to subcut really quick here. So I've got my fabric here. I will cut my strip out real quick, but not too quick. We're not crazy here. We're not crazy about speed. A tip, if you're cutting a bunch of strips that are the same size using this type of ruler, you could get some washi tape and just kind of line it up with that 4.5-inch line. And then it's just a little bit quicker to know, oh, I just need to line it up with that line. Especially if some of the lines can get confusing for some people. So I have done that before when I've been cutting a bunch of pieces out. But here we're just gonna cut our strip. And then to subcut, I'm gonna set this over here. To subcut, we're then going to, I'm gonna turn the fabric over here. So here's my selvage. I'm gonna cut off my selvage here real quick for subcutting. So now we need 4.5-inch squares from the strip, okay? So again, we're gonna line up a horizontal line with the bottom of the strip, and then we're gonna line up that 4.5-inch line on our ruler with that edge that we just cut the selvage off of, and then cut. And then you just cut 2 squares at a time since the fabric is folded. So this helps cut down on time as well. Pun intended. All right, so now we're just gonna keep subcutting our pieces until we are done with the strip. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8. And then this piece is not big enough to do 2, but we can unfold it and cut 1 from it, which I'm gonna do here real quick. So you will get 9 squares from each strip, okay? And that's how you subcut, okay? So when you see subcut in a pattern, that's all that means, okay? I know when I was first starting, I didn't know what subcut meant. I was like, oh, what does this mean? I was very new to any type of sewing. So there's that, and then we'll just have a little scrap piece that, do not throw that away. You can use it for something. Scraps can be used for stuff. So I will be saving that for something else down the line. So I hope that has answered any questions you might have about how to cut the strips, how to subcut, how to select fabric for this project. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know, okay? This quilt along, I know I keep on saying it, but it's gonna be so much fun, and I can't wait to see everybody's version of this quilt. It's gonna be awesome to see. So I'm gonna create a playlist with all of the videos from this quilt along and have that easy to find on the channel. So if you miss a week, or if you may not want to be making the quilt during the quilt along time during these next 6 weeks, those videos will be up, you know, for forever after that. So if you want to come back and make the quilt at some later date, you certainly can, and these videos will be here. There'll be all those questions and answers in the comments below, and it's just going to be, I think, a really good resource for anybody that wants to make this quilt in the future. It's going to be a lot of fun for us making it in real time, and I'm just very excited to see what you're making, okay? So get all of your fabric picked out, cut, and then next week we are going to just jump right in and start making our 9-patch blocks, which is a very fun block to make fairly quick, and I think we're gonna have a lot of fun with it, okay? So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you want to check out my shop, I've got all kinds of fabrics available. I will still have kits available, though getting them sent out is taking a little bit longer just because of getting the fabric in and waiting for the companies to send me the fabric. Sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes when I order fabric, the order gets processed and shipped out like within like a day or two, like very quickly. But then sometimes it takes like a week for the order just to get processed, and then it takes another day or two for it to get shipped. It's not as quick as I thought it was going to be, because the first few orders that I placed when I was just starting was super fast. I was like, whoa, I can order something and get it the same week. But that's just not the case all of the time. So bear with me. I am learning. I'm definitely learning through this process. And next time when I do kits for a pattern, I'm going to make a bunch more and order a bunch more fabric than I think might even happen. I mean, for this launch of these kits, I made 5 of each, and I thought maybe I would sell half of them. But they did so well, and I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody that's ordered a kit. It's so cool and so exciting, and I just really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I just really, really appreciate it. So I hope you have a great rest of your week. Have fun getting your fabric cut up. I'm going to have fun getting my fabric cut up. I will see you next week, and we'll make some really cute 9-patch blocks, okay? Bye. If we haven't met before, hi, my name... My personal opinion on... There's a fly in here.